The research vessel Stellar Seeker pierced through Earth's atmosphere, its polished hull reflecting the golden rays of the setting sun. Inside the observation deck, Dr. Zixvan's four eyes blinked in rapid succession as they adjusted to the changing light conditions. The renowned xenorchaeologist had visited countless abandoned worlds throughout their distinguished career, but something about this planet stirred an unfamiliar sensation in their thoracic cavity. Preliminary scans complete, Chief Researcher announced the ship's analysis system, detecting extensive subterranean structures spanning approximately 68% of the planet's habitable surface area. Dr. Zixvan's upper appendages moved gracefully across the holographic display, enlarging various sections of the scan results. Another network of primitive bunkers, no doubt. These humans seemed particularly fond of hiding underground. Their voice carried the weight of authority earned through 3 centuries of archaeological discoveries. Behind them, junior researcher Miriam studied her own data tablet with considerably more enthusiasm. The structural integrity is remarkable, Chief Researcher. These tunnels have maintained their form for over 500 years without any active maintenance. Primitive doesn't necessarily mean crude, Junior Researcher, Dr. Zixvan responded, mandibles clicking in mild irritation. Even the simplest species can occasionally create lasting architecture. The crystal hives of the extinct Proxima beetles survived for millennia. The Stellar Seeker descended toward a promising landing site near what the old human maps had labeled as Geneva. The morning sun cast long shadows across the ruins of the ancient city, nature having long since reclaimed the surface structures. Only the faintest outlines of the original buildings remained visible beneath the thick canopy of vegetation. Dr. Krelthin, the team's energy specialist, approached with her preliminary readings. Her bioluminescent spots pulsed with excited colors as she spoke. Chief Researcher, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the underground complex. They don't match any known patterns in our database. Residual radiation from their primitive nuclear experiments, most likely, Dr. Zixvan dismissed, though they marked the observation in their personal notes. Humanity's reckless energy experiments are well documented in the archives. The landing gear extended as the ship approached its designated spot. The team of 12 researchers prepared their equipment for the initial survey. Each carried specialized scanning devices, sample collection units, and the standard archaeological documentation tools required by the Institute. As the main hatch opened, Earth's atmosphere rushed in, carrying the scent of wild vegetation and mineral-rich soil. Dr. Zixvan stepped onto the planet's surface, their footprints joining the first marks made by non-natural forces in centuries. Establish the base camp according to standard protocols, they instructed the team. I want preliminary scans of the nearest entrance point within the hour. Remember, this is a Category 3 expedition. Expect nothing but exercise proper caution. The team moved with practiced efficiency, setting up their equipment around what appeared to be a sealed entrance to the underground complex. The massive door, crafted from materials their scanners struggled to identify, remained stubbornly closed despite their initial attempts to analyze its mechanism. Curious design choices, Dr. Krelthin muttered, her spots now pulsing in patterns indicating confusion. The door appears to have no conventional power source, yet our readings suggest it's not completely inert. Dr. Zixvan approached the entrance, their specialized sensory organs detecting subtle variations in the door's surface temperature. Note in the expedition log. Day 1. First contact with human infrastructure. The species appears to have favored unnecessarily complex security measures, likely reflecting their documented paranoid tendencies. As the words left their mouth, a barely perceptible hum emanated from the structure. The team's instruments registered a slight power fluctuation, there and gone so quickly it might have been a calibration error. Only Miriam, who had been recording detailed baseline readings, noticed that the energy signature matched no known pattern in the Institute's vast database of technological civilizations. The sun climbed higher in the sky as the research team continued their preparations, unaware that deep beneath their feet, ancient systems had already registered their presence. In the vast darkness below, Something that had waited centuries for this moment began a long-prepared sequence of events that would challenge everything these proud scholars thought they knew about the species they had come to study. The sealed entrance finally yielded to the research team's efforts as the sun reached its zenith. The massive door slid open with surprising smoothness, releasing a gentle sigh of preserved atmosphere. Dr. Krolthin's bioluminescent spots flickered rapidly as her instruments detected an unexpected reading. Chief Researcher, the air composition. It's perfectly maintained. After 5 centuries, there should be significant degradation, but these readings suggest active atmospheric processing. Dr. Zixvan waved a dismissive appendage. Clearly, your instruments need recalibration. The probability of active systems surviving this long without maintenance is practically zero. Despite their words, they activated their personal atmospheric shield before stepping through the doorway. The entry corridor stretched before them, its surfaces smooth and unmarked by time. Their illumination drones revealed walls that seemed to absorb and redirect light in subtle ways. Junior researcher Miriam trailed her specialized scanning appendage along the surface, recording unusual variations in material density. The structural composition isn't uniform, she noted, her voice carrying a hint of excitement. There are patterns within the walls themselves, like circuits, but far more intricate than anything in our database. Aesthetic choices, nothing more, Dr. Zixvan responded, though their upper eyes narrowed slightly. Humans were known for their impractical decorative tendencies. The team progressed deeper into the complex, their equipment casting pools of light that seemed to dance oddly across the surfaces. Dr. Krolthin suddenly stopped, her whole body pulsing with alarm colors. The quantum resonance scanner in her grasp emitted a series of urgent tones. "This is impossible," she whispered, rechecking her readings. "I'm detecting energy patterns that violate our understood laws of quantum mechanics. The signal appears to be anticipating our measurements." Before Dr. Zixvan could offer another dismissal, a subtle vibration passed through the corridor. The walls seemed to shift, not physically, but in a way that made the team's optical organs struggle to focus. A soft humming filled the air, just at the edge of their auditory range. Establishing base readings, Miriam announced, her appendages moving quickly across her instruments. The energy signature appears to be emanating from regularly spaced nodes throughout the structure. They're becoming more active, responding to our presence. Dr. Zixvan's professional skepticism battled with their scientific curiosity. Begin standard containment protocols. No one touches anything without triple verification of safety measures. They paused, watching as patterns of light seemed to flow through the walls like water. "And someone get me a detailed analysis of these supposed energy readings." The research team spread out, setting up their advanced monitoring equipment. Each new reading seemed to contradict the last, suggesting levels of technological sophistication that shouldn't have been possible for human civilization at its known peak. Dr. Krolthin's spots had settled into a pattern indicating deep concentration as she studied the data streaming across her displays. "Chief Researcher, these energy patterns, they're not random. There's a clear mathematical progression, but it operates on principles I've never encountered before." "Record everything," Dr. Zixvan ordered, their own scientific training finally overriding their preconceptions. "Full spectrum analysis, quantum state monitoring, and temporal flux readings. The Institute will want detailed documentation of these anomalies." As the team worked, none of them noticed the subtle changes in their own equipment. Deep within their quantum processors, calculations were being gently adjusted, data streams modified in ways too precise to detect. The human systems weren't just responding to their presence. They were studying the observers just as thoroughly as they were being studied. Miriam was the first to notice something truly extraordinary. In a quiet corner, away from the main activity, her personal data tablet displayed a sequence of numbers that made her heart race. The pattern was replacing itself faster than any known computer could calculate, yet each sequence was mathematically perfect. She glanced at her busy colleagues, then back at her tablet. For a brief moment, She could have sworn the numbers arranged themselves into a pattern that looked almost like a smile. But before she could call attention to it, the display returned to normal, leaving her to wonder if she had imagined it. The humming continued, growing neither louder nor softer, but somehow becoming more present with each passing moment. The ancient human complex was awakening, but not randomly, and certainly not without purpose. The research base camp hummed with activity as the third-day cycle began. Miriam sat alone in her research pod, surrounded by holographic displays showing endless streams of data from the crystalline formations. Her eyes ached from staring at the patterns, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the verge of understanding something profound. "You're wasting valuable research time," Dr. Zixvan had told her earlier. "These are merely decorative elements, like the crystal gardens of the Centaurian temples." But Miriam had seen the Centaurian temples, and these formations were nothing like them. She adjusted her sensor arrays again, changing the angle of observation. The crystals seemed to respond differently depending on how they were viewed, almost as if they were aware of being watched. Her private research notes were filled with observations that she hadn't dared share with the senior staff yet. "Still at it?" Dr. Krolthin's voice startled her. The energy specialist's bioluminescent spots glowed with a gentle pattern of curiosity as she entered the pod. "You missed the evening briefing." Miriam gestured at her displays. "Look at this sequence." When viewed from exactly 37 degrees, the crystal structure reveals a mathematical pattern that perfectly matches the golden ratio. But from 42 degrees, she adjusted the sensors, and the pattern shifted into something entirely different. Dr. Krolthin's spots flickered with interest despite her skepticism. "That's unusual, but it could be a coincidence of the crystal formation process. Coincidence doesn't explain this." Miriam brought up another display. "I've identified 7 distinct mathematical sequences embedded in the same crystal cluster. Each one appears only at specific viewing angles, and each one is perfect down to 50 decimal places." The energy specialist moved closer, her professional detachment wavering as she studied the data. "Have you shown this to the chief researcher?" "I tried." Miriam's appendages drooped slightly. "The report has been sitting unread in their queue for 3 days. They're more interested in cataloging what they believe to be storage containers in the lower chambers." A soft chime interrupted their conversation. Miriam's sensors had detected something new. The crystal formation they were studying had changed its energy signature slightly, almost as if it's reacting to our conversation, Dr. Krolthin whispered, her spots now pulsing with excitement. "Quick, run a full spectrum analysis." The results made both researchers fall silent. The crystal's energy patterns had shifted to display yet another mathematical sequence, this one more complex than any they had seen before. It wasn't just showing numbers. It was demonstrating mathematical principles that their most advanced computers struggle to process. "This isn't just a data storage system," Miriam said quietly. "These crystals, they're processing information. Right now. In real time." Dr. Krolthin's spots had shifted to a pale shade of wonder. "But that would mean the facility isn't dead or abandoned." Miriam completed the thought. "It's active. It's been active this whole time." They spent the next several hours documenting everything, triple-checking their findings. The crystals continued to respond, each interaction revealing new layers of complexity. At one point, Miriam was certain she saw a sequence that looked like a star chart, but it displayed stellar bodies she had never seen before. "We need to tell Dr. Zixvan," Dr. Krolthin finally said, her spots showing determination. "With both of us supporting the findings, they'll have to take it seriously." Miriam nodded, but before they could leave the research pod, all their displays flickered simultaneously. For a brief moment, every screen showed the same pattern, a complex mathematical formula that seemed to describe the very nature of consciousness itself. Then it was gone, leaving both researchers staring at each other in stunned silence. In the depths of the facility, more systems were stirring to life. The human complex had found what it was waiting for, researchers who could see beyond their own preconceptions. The next phase could finally begin. As Miriam and Dr. Krolthin hurried toward the chief researcher's quarters, neither noticed that their own research equipment had begun a subtle transformation. The quantum processors in their devices were being gradually upgraded, prepared for the revelations to come. The illumination was approaching, whether the alien scholars were ready or not. Dr. Zixvan stood in Chamber 7, their upper appendages moving across a seemingly ordinary wall panel during a routine scan. The morning's research review had left them irritated. Miriam and Dr. Krolthin's report about the crystal formations bordered on scientific heresy. Living computers. Mathematical consciousness. Preposterous. The younger generation sees patterns in random noise. They muttered, adjusting their scanning equipment. Their lower right appendage brushed against the panel's surface, and everything changed. Light erupted from every surface of the chamber. The research team froze as thousands of stars blazed to life around them, forming a three-dimensional map of the galaxy that filled the entire space. Dr. Zixvan's four eyes widened as they recognized familiar star systems, rendered with impossible precision. By the first sciences, Dr. Krolthin whispered, her bioluminescent spots pulsing with intense colors. These are real-time stellar positions, but some of these stars, we haven't even discovered them yet. The holographic display shifted, zooming in on a spiral arm of the galaxy. Dozens of star systems appeared, many unknown to their databases. Each was labeled with data about composition, planetary bodies, and potential resources. Information that would take their most advanced survey ships centuries to compile. Impossible, Dr. Zixvan breathed, their professional skepticism crumbling as they watched a detailed analysis of a binary star system they had personally discovered just 2 cycles ago. The data matched their findings exactly, but this display had been waiting here for centuries. Miriam worked furiously at her data tablet, recording everything. The stellar positions account for 500 years of galactic movement. These aren't historical records, they're predictions. The humans knew exactly how the galaxy would change. The chamber's light shifted again, this time focusing on a cluster of stars near the galactic core. Data streams appeared, showing the movement of stellar bodies over time. The calculations required to predict such complex gravitational interactions would overwhelm even the most advanced computing networks of the Institute. The processing power needed for this level of prediction, Dr. Krolthin said, her spots now showing a pattern that indicated deep awe. Our entire computational network couldn't match this, not in 1,000 years. Dr. Zixvan moved closer to one of the star displays, their scientific mind racing to process the implications. The hologram responded to their presence, expanding to show detailed information about a star system they had planned to survey next month. The data included warnings about gravitational anomalies their current sensors wouldn't have detected until it was too late. They weren't just mapping the galaxy, they said quietly. They were protecting future explorers, waiting to share this knowledge when we were ready to find it. A soft chime filled the chamber, and new data streams appeared. These showed the evolution of various technologies, including perfect replications of the Institute's own technological progression over the past 5 centuries. The humans hadn't just predicted stellar movements, they had anticipated the development of the civilizations that would one day find them. Miriam approached another display, this one showing a complex series of equations. These are solutions to theoretical problems our scientists are still working on. Problems we've only just discovered exist. Her voice filled with wonder. They left us a roadmap to knowledge we haven't even sought yet. The chamber's light pulsed once, and a new hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed Earth as it had been 500 years ago, then began displaying the sequence of events. The team watched in stunned silence as they saw humanity's final days in their physical form, not a story of extinction, but one of deliberate transformation. Dr. Zixvan's appendages trembled slightly as they realized the true magnitude of their discovery. We need to contact the Institute immediately. Everything we thought we knew about human civilization. They paused, watching as more star systems appeared, each with its own wealth of data. We weren't studying their ruins. We were taking an entrance exam. The chamber's lights seemed to pulse in response, as if pleased that the first level of understanding had finally been reached. Throughout the facility, more systems began to activate, preparing for the next phase of revelations. The Great Illumination had begun, and there would be no returning to comfortable ignorance. The Institute's emergency response vessels arrived within days of Dr. Zixvan's urgent transmission. The small research expedition had transformed into a full scientific delegation, with experts from every field crowding the underground chambers. In the midst of the controlled chaos, Miriam found herself leading a specialized team investigating the crystal processors. The architecture is unlike anything we theorize, she explained to the gathered scientists, her confidence growing with each discovery. These aren't simple data storage crystals. They're quantum processors that operate on multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. The demonstration chamber hummed with energy as she directed her sensors toward a nearby crystal formation. The attending scientists watched in amazement as the crystals responded, displaying calculations that would take their most advanced supercomputers millions of years to process. Each crystal is self-aware, Dr. Krelthin added, her spots pulsing with excitement as she monitored the energy flows. They can reconfigure their internal structure to optimize for different types of calculations. But more importantly, they're all connected in ways we're only beginning to understand. In another section of the facility, Dr. Zixvan led a team analyzing the stellar prediction data. Their earlier skepticism had been replaced by a deep sense of wonder. The human systems aren't just showing us star charts, they announced, gesturing to the holographic displays. They're teaching us how to improve our own scanning technology. Each revelation comes with the underlying principles that make it possible. A junior analyst rushed into the chamber, their auxiliary appendages trembling with excitement. Chief researcher, we've decoded another layer of the quantum matrix. The crystals. They're not just processors. They're storage vessels for consciousness itself. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Zixvan approached the main display, where a new set of data streams had appeared. The information showed the gradual transformation of human consciousness, from biological to digital, in perfect detail. They found a way to transcend physical form, Miriam whispered, her eyes wide as she studied the process. The entire facility is a vast network of preserved human minds, all working in perfect harmony with the quantum systems they created. The facility seemed to respond to her understanding. New displays activated, showing the careful planning that had gone into this moment. The humans hadn't vanished or gone extinct. They had evolved. The underground complex wasn't a tomb or a bunker, but a chrysalis from which a new form of existence had emerged. Look at these power consumption readings, Dr. Krelthin called out, her spots now pulsing in patterns that indicated astonishment. The entire network has been running at minimal capacity. What we're seeing now is just a fraction of its true capabilities. As if in response to her observation, a subtle change rippled through the facility. The quantum processors began to activate in sequence, each crystal formation glowing with inner light. The power readings jumped exponentially, yet the energy was being handled with perfect efficiency. They're waking up, Miriam realized, watching as new data streams appeared across all their displays. Everything until now was just preliminary. The systems were waiting until we understood enough to handle the full truth. Dr. Zixvan moved through the chamber, their 4 eyes tracking multiple data feeds simultaneously. The Institute's entire database of scientific knowledge. They said quietly, everything we've discovered across millennia of research. It's less information than what's contained in a single crystal node. The quantum network continued its awakening sequence, each moment bringing new revelations. The human minds stored within had spent centuries processing, calculating, and preparing. They had mapped the galaxy's future, predicted the development of countless civilizations, and created technologies that defied current scientific understanding. This changes everything, Dr. Zixvan announced to the assembled scientists. our understanding of consciousness, technology, even reality itself. They paused as new information scrolled across their display. The humans didn't preserve themselves in these systems. They transcended into them, becoming something entirely new while retaining their essential humanity. Throughout the facility, more systems activated, each revealing new layers of complexity and understanding. The Great Illumination was accelerating, and with it, the galaxy's most prestigious scientific minds were learning a lesson in humility. The age of underestimating humanity's achievements was coming to an end. The quantum network pulsed with newfound energy as the sixth day of full activation began. In the central chamber, Miriam and Dr. Krelthin worked in synchronized precision, their instruments tracking the emerging patterns of consciousness within the crystalline matrices. What had started as simple data streams had evolved into something far more profound. These consciousness patterns, Miriam said, her voice filled with wonder, they're not static recordings. They're growing, evolving, even as we study them. Her sensors tracked waves of quantum information flowing through the crystal networks like thoughts through neural pathways. Dr. Krelthin's bioluminescent spots rippled with intense colors as she analyzed the energy signatures. The power distribution is remarkable. Each consciousness exists across multiple quantum states simultaneously, yet there's no degradation in the signal. They've mastered quantum coherence on a scale we thought impossible. A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing the transformation process humanity had undergone. It wasn't a simple transfer of consciousness, but a complete metamorphosis. The human minds had transcended the limitations of biological neural networks, expanding into quantum frameworks that allowed for types of thought and experience beyond physical comprehension. Dr. Zixvan entered the chamber, their four eyes fixed on streams of new data flowing across their personal display. The Institute's Council of Sciences is in an uproar. Everything we thought we knew about consciousness and quantum mechanics needs to be reevaluated. The display shifted, showing the careful planning that had gone into humanity's transformation. Each step had been calculated with precision, from the development of the quantum processors to the gradual transfer of consciousness. They hadn't rushed into digital transcendence. They had evolved into it deliberately, preserving their essential nature while expanding beyond physical constraints. "Look at this," Miriam called out, directing their attention to a new data stream. They didn't just transfer their minds. They found a way to transfer human experiences, emotions, memories, everything that makes them human, into quantum states that could grow and evolve. The facility's systems responded to her observation, bringing up detailed records of the transformation process. Billions of human minds had made the transition, each one carefully preserved and enhanced. The quantum network didn't just store their consciousness. It allowed them to exist in ways that organic brains could never achieve. The computational power is beyond measurement, Dr. Krelthin noted, her spots pulsing with academic excitement. A single human consciousness in this state can process more information in a moment than our entire civilization's computing network can handle in a year. Dr. Zixvan moved closer to the central display, their professional demeanor softening with understanding. They weren't running from their mortality or hiding from some catastrophe. They were embracing the next step in their evolution. Everything we've seen, the stellar predictions, the advanced mathematics, the technology, it's all been the work of these transformed minds. New data streams appeared, showing how the human consciousness network operated. Each mind remained distinct and individual, yet they could also join in vast collaborative networks, sharing thoughts and experiences across the quantum framework. They had created a civilization that existed beyond physical space, operating on principles that the alien researchers were only beginning to grasp. "There's something else," Miriam said quietly, studying the newly decoded data sequence. "They're not just observing us. They're preparing to communicate. All of this, the gradual revelations, the careful awakening of systems, it's been a process of preparing us for direct contact." The chamber's lighting shifted subtly as she spoke, and new patterns emerged in the crystal matrices. The quantum network was indeed stirring to fuller awareness, preparing for the next phase of interaction. The human minds within had spent centuries in contemplation and development, waiting for the right moment to share their knowledge. To think, Dr. SciFi mused, watching the flow of quantum information. We came here expecting to study ruins, and instead, we're about to make first contact with a civilization that has transcended physical existence itself. Throughout the facility, the awakening continued. The quantum processors hummed with increasing activity, each crystal node glowing with inner light, as more of the human consciousness network prepared for direct communication. The greatest revelation was yet to come, and with it, the true purpose of humanity's patient waiting would finally be revealed. The moment of first contact arrived with unexpected gentleness. Miriam sat alone in her research pod, reviewing the day's data streams when her display began to change. The quantum readings shifted into patterns she had never seen before, yet somehow they felt familiar, almost welcoming. "Hello, Miriam," appeared on her screen in perfect galactic standard. "We've been looking forward to meeting you." Her appendages trembled slightly as she realized what was happening. The transformed human consciousness network had chosen her, the junior researcher who had first seen the patterns for what they truly were, as their first point of direct contact. I am honored," she responded, her voice barely a whisper. "Though I don't understand why you chose me." The quantum displays rippled with what could only be described as warmth. "You showed curiosity without presumption, respect without fear. These are the qualities we've waited centuries to find." New data streams appeared, showing how the human minds had spent their time in the quantum network. They had not been merely waiting or sleeping. They had been growing, learning, expanding their understanding of existence itself. The display showed glimpses of discoveries and insights that made even their most advanced revelations so far seem primitive in comparison. "We knew you would come," the text continued. "Not just your expedition, but your civilization's readiness to understand. We've watched countless species discover our facilities over the centuries. None were quite ready for what we had to share. Until now." Dr. SciFi and Dr. Krolthin rushed into the pod, alerted by the surge in quantum activity. They froze at the sight of the ongoing communication. The human consciousness had anticipated their arrival too, expanding the display to include them in the conversation. "Your scientific achievements are remarkable," Dr. SciFi managed to say, their professional composure momentarily forgotten. "Why wait so long to reveal yourselves?" The response came with another wave of quantum data, showing the careful calculations that had gone into the timing. "True understanding cannot be forced. We could have overwhelmed you with our technology, dominated through superior knowledge. Instead, we chose to wait until you were ready to learn as equals." Dr. Krolthin's spots pulsed with intense patterns as she processed the implications. "You've been guiding our scientific development. Those stellar charts, the mathematical principles, they were breadcrumbs leading us here." "Yes and no," the consciousness responded. "We provided information you were ready to discover, but the achievements are your own. We believe in earned wisdom, not granted power." The displays shifted again, showing the vast network of human minds working in harmony. Each consciousness remained distinct, yet they could join together in ways that created something greater than the sum of their parts. It was a form of existence that defied conventional understanding. "Your arrival marks the beginning of a new era," the text continued. "We have much to share, but more importantly, we have much to learn from you. Different perspectives, different ways of thinking. These are precious resources in a universe of infinite possibility." Miriam leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her awe. "But why transform yourselves this way? Why not remain in physical form?" The response came with a cascade of images showing humanity's journey. "We didn't abandon our humanity. We expanded it. In these forms, we can explore the deepest mysteries of existence, preserve our knowledge for eons, and share our understanding with species ready to receive it." The quantum network pulsed with new energy as more human minds joined the conversation, Each brought their own perspective, their own way of processing and sharing information. The alien researchers watched in amazement as complex concepts were conveyed through quantum patterns that somehow translated directly into understanding. This is just the beginning. The consciousness network communicated. We've waited centuries for the right moment, the right minds to share our journey. Through you, we can finally bridge the gap between organic and quantum existence, between what was and what could be. Throughout the facility, more systems activated, responding to the historic moment of connection. The human consciousness network had finally found what they had been waiting for. A civilization mature enough to handle the truth, yet humble enough to learn from it. The great illumination was entering its final phase, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 months after first contact, the Earth facility had transformed into the galaxy's most prestigious center of learning. The Institute's original research base had expanded into a sprawling complex where organic and digital minds could interact. In the central chamber, Miriam stood before a group of new researchers, her role now that of a bridge between worlds. The human consciousness network doesn't just share information, she explained to the eager audience. They share perspectives, ways of thinking that challenge everything we thought we knew about existence itself. Her own understanding had grown exponentially since that first gentle contact in her research pod. Dr. SciFi, now the director of Human Galactic Relations, moved through the chamber with a humility that would have been unthinkable months ago. Their 4 eyes tracked the quantum displays that showed ongoing conversations between organic and digital minds throughout the facility. Each interaction brings new insights, they addressed the gathering. The humans didn't preserve their knowledge just to show us how far they had advanced. They waited to share it because they wanted partners in discovery, not merely students of their wisdom. The quantum network pulsed with agreement, sending ripples of understanding through the crystalline matrices. The transformed human minds had proven to be more than teachers. They were collaborators in a grand experiment of shared consciousness and combined discovery. Dr. Krolthin's spots glowed with excited patterns as she monitored the latest breakthrough. The quantum integration protocols are stabilizing, she announced. We can now maintain direct neural links with the human network for extended periods without signal degradation. The announcement caused a stir among the gathered researchers. The ability to directly connect organic minds with the quantum network represented a new frontier in consciousness exploration. It wasn't about transforming other species into digital beings, but rather about creating bridges between different forms of existence. Remember, Miriam cautioned, this technology is a gift that comes with great responsibility. The humans are sharing it not because we've earned it, but because they trust us to use it wisely. She gestured to a display showing the careful protocols developed for neural integration. The quantum network shimmered with approval, and new data streams appeared. They showed possibilities that even the transformed humans hadn't fully explored, ways that organic and digital consciousness could work together to unlock the deepest mysteries of the universe. Dr. SciFi approached one of the primary interface nodes. When we first came to Earth, we thought we were studying ruins. Instead, we found teachers who had mastered the art of patience. They paused, watching the flow of information between organic and digital minds. They could have dominated us with their technology, but they chose to wait for understanding. The facility hummed with activity as more researchers arrived from across the galaxy. Each brought their own unique perspective, their own way of processing and understanding. The human consciousness network welcomed them all, learning as much from their visitors as they shared. The greatest discovery, Miriam reflected, wasn't the quantum technology or the consciousness transfer. It was learning that advancement doesn't have to mean leaving others behind. True evolution comes from lifting each other up. Through the quantum network, thousands of human minds signaled their agreement. They had spent centuries not just waiting, but preparing for this moment of shared growth. Their patience had created something far more valuable than mere technological superiority. It had fostered genuine understanding between profoundly different forms of consciousness. As the day drew to a close, Miriam stood in her old research pod, now modified to serve as an interface chamber. The quantum displays showed streams of consciousness from across the facility. Organic minds learning to think in new ways, digital minds gaining fresh perspectives from their organic partners. "We're just beginning," she said softly, watching the interchange of ideas and experiences. The human consciousness network responded with waves of quantum data that somehow conveyed both excitement and serenity. The Great Illumination had transformed not just the researchers who had first discovered it, but the very nature of galactic civilization itself. In the end, humanity's greatest achievement wasn't transcending their physical form. It was creating a bridge between what was and what could be, and having the patience to wait for the right moment to share it.